Hello, welcome to this video section on intergenerational approaches to environmental education. I'm Matt Kaplan over at Penn State University, and along with my colleagues Nikki Liu at National Taichung University in Taiwan and Shanira Smith over at Penn State as well as a grad student, we're going to be talking about the what's, whys, and hows of intergenerational approaches to environmental education. All right, so first thing I'd like to talk about is why. Why look at environmental education opportunities and curricula in an intergenerational way? If you look at both areas, environmental ed and intergenerational studies, there really are many points of intersection across these two. So for instance, there's an interactive approach to learning. So obviously intergenerational work is really all about having people learn together, learn from one another, apply the learning together. Could be around health and wellness type activities, or in this case, learning about the environment and preserving it. Environmental educators are fantastic in creating discovery opportunities and experiences. So we have really a lot in common here. Both areas also draw from multiple disciplines, look at different settings. Right here, we're at the Children's Garden of the Penn State Arboretum, a beautiful environment, and I'll show you some of the sections a little later on in this video. Also, we tend to work with people, when I say we, intergenerational people and environmental educators, from an empowerment orientation. So it's really active learning and trying to help learning be relevant to people, let it be their learning and their decisions on how to apply it to their lives. What is so special or useful about an intergenerational approach to environmental education? So here we have a space where it's very rich with information. So here we have the spice bush. These are these bushes. They attract swallowtail butterflies. The butterflies basically nest in these trees, and then they eat the leaves, and as they get older they eat the nectar. And then we also have a visual. We have an object here, a caterpillar, that really very clearly indicates that there's a connection between the caterpillar and the butterflies, right? So think about children experiencing this environment, right? They're getting the information, there are plaques all over, facilitators or docents are explaining it to them. They're probably climbing on this, okay? Now what I want to do is talk about what might an intergenerational component add to this space and its learning potential. So think about not so much a docent, an older adult, not as a docent who gives information, but somebody who's integrally involved in sharing information, fantasizing, drawing analogies between caterpillar butterfly development and human development. Really, you could get so much more out of it. So number one, this is a great example of metamorphosis, of development of life. So there are parallels with humans. So we don't have such a dramatic metamorphosis, but over time we do develop, and our eating habits and living habits change, and what we look like changes. So from a lifespan development point of view, a child can get an understanding of how all living things grow and develop over time, and how they themselves will be developing. And even if we want to work in a lifestyle kind of awareness in terms of health and wellness, we could explain things like how people eat and how they take care of themselves and stay active will affect their aging throughout their lifespans. So this is a great opportunity to talk about life across generations, as well as how the intergenerational part helps us understand this incredible creature. I'd like to share a few things to keep in mind when planning intergenerational environmental education projects. Take a look at this image over here. You see two photos of an intergenerational gardening project at Abraham House in the Bronx, New York, basically as part of Cornell's Garden Mosaics project. Okay, now the image on the left, basically the youth are interviewing the older adult about plants and growing practices. They're sharing life stories. What does the garden mean to you? How did it develop in this space? The one on the right is when they're actually doing some gardening, and they're working together to make it happen. This image is actually, both sides are really good to make the point. I've seen a lot of intergenerational projects where people are so focused on the task let's say gardening, where they just get the gardening task out of the way. They're not really talking to one another, learning about one another, sharing information about gardening, building teamwork, building a sense of neighborliness, joint civic engagement, all the great stuff that happens when people work together to build community. So this project is really great. They have that. People are knowing each other, they're sharing their autobiographical landscape experiences, and they're gardening together to make this a better place in the community. So it really is a strong project, and you really could, in this kind of program, extend the discussion. The more they talk, the more they get to know one another, and the more that happens, the more likely relationships happen, which makes it more sustainable, because people are enjoying the garden not only because of all the great attributes of a garden, but because that's where their friends are, and they care about the garden, they care for the garden, and they improve the garden together. So, so I would just say, to summarize this point, it goes from task, you're focusing on the task, to conversation, to relationship. And the environment is the context of that process. So with all of that, I'd like to just say thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, please drop us a line.